Welcome to the podcast designed to fuel your sales growth. I'm your host, Josh Lopresto, SVP of Sales Engineering at Telarus, and this is Next Level Biz Tech. Hey everybody, welcome back. We are bringing back a track by popular demand called Business Blueprints, Lessons from Leaders. Today on with us, we have got Matthew Toth, founder and president of C3. Matthew, welcome on, buddy.
And thanks for having me, Josh.
We got a lot to unpack here, man. We were just chatting before and realized, dude, we got to hit the record button. So let's jump into it. First of all, let's just start us off. Give us the origin story, personal background, anything unique, how you got into this space, and kind of what the path was along the way.
Oh goodness. I hope you got a little bit. I think the story is interesting, or maybe it's just interesting to me. I don't know. I guess you can figure that one out. I started in 2000 at this crazy company called WorldCom. And for all of these old school telecom people that are out there, they'll go, oh gosh, he's one of those people. But I started at this company as it was coming down from its height. So this guy named Bernie Evers had been inflating stock earnings and had been essentially lying people to inflate his stock to buy other companies. And I did this big long speech on it last year. I think the number was in 6 years and 72 months, they acquired 66 companies. 66 companies. That's one a month.
Easy.
For 6 years. And I came in just as they're wrapping up the last of these, of all of these mergers and acquisitions. There's so many systems and there's so many people. It's kind of chaos. It's a little bit chaos. But me being 22 years old, I didn't know anything. So I know less than nothing. I am fresh out of school. So I spent 2.5 years there. And before starting C3, I spent about 8.5 years. Well, I'll focus on this for a moment. And you saw all these things that are these warning tales of hey, people are replaceable. Change comp plans. We're just going to buy our way into being a bigger company. And you saw this maniacal focus on quarterly results and stuff. And it was just, and I'll never forget, be the 31st of the month. And, someone just shows up at a project manager's desk and just goes, oh, here you go. Here are 10 forms for random products. And the project manager just looks at the salesperson and goes, what the hell is all this? He goes, that's an order. And she goes, 2/3 of this stuff isn't even filled out properly. Hey, I did my job. This is your problem now. And I thought to myself, I can more accurately describe it now. But I saw this as, imagine a gigantic machine, a series of gears. And every time someone does this, they put a little grain of sand into one of those gears. And you know what? You can get away with that for a while. But there's going to be one day when all of a sudden this big machine or one of these gears just stops working. But you will never know what grain of sand it was that was ultimately the one that broke that thing. But if you have all these things in your organization that happen all the time, all you're doing is throwing one little grain of sand at a time into this gear, into these gears, into this machine. And only when you ultimately leave that place and you can stand back and see the craziness of it, because you don't really think about, the fog of war when you're in the middle of it. Yeah. You only think about it after you get back out of it, and you're like, that was crazy. That. Yeah. By the way, I'm a swearer, so I'm gonna keep the swearing to a 0 today. Okay. So
family show.
I want to swear so badly because the start of my career is nuts.
Be strong.
Be strong. I got it. But I walked into that building, and there was 120 people that worked there when I started, and when I left, there were more offices than people. So even a guy that was 24 years old had a big office. Why? It's because we still had this big office space. It's not because I deserved an office, but it just hit me. I was like, this is pretty sad. There is ultimately my company filed for bankruptcy, WorldCom filed for bankruptcy. They got acquired by Verizon. Verizon had to dig through this mess of a company that they ultimately ended up acquiring. And that was my entry. And by the way, that's the Reader's Digest version of this whole story. That was my entry into this crazy world. that was for about 2.5 years. And I was just like, and as I go through these experiences, these 8.5 years, I'll get into more of these in a moment. It's so funny because I learn about what I should do to be an entrepreneur and to be a leader, but I probably learn more about what not to do. And it's this interesting mix. I've met wonderful people along the way, but I've also met so many people with this soulless pursuit of more. And I almost kept this mental inventory of all the things I do and don't want to do when I grow up. And I still haven't grown up. So, so I spend, 2.5 years there. I went to Sprint and after that, and at Sprint had just merged with Nextel. And for everyone that's over the age of 40, somebody would have a phone that would go, "Brrr," and they'd have these conversations out loud. It was just like you could talk. It was a thing. Just look it up.
It
It's
was
in
magical. It
Wikipedia.
was supposed to be the next greatest thing. I
Oh
remember
yeah,
these. These were
it's on the internet somewhere. So I spent a year there, and it was tumultuous, and it was like they had almost forgotten about the division of the company that I worked on, which was the wireline part. And it was the second example of a company that was more focused on acquiring other companies than actually its employees, its product set, its culture. It was just going to grow and finance its way to the top. So I spent a year there. And when I left there, I was so beaten down. I was like, I don't know if I'm good at this anymore. It was like, it was just really, it was difficult. So I then actually went to a company, Quest, QWEST. A lot of folks in this space have spent some time there.
Mhm.
And I spent 5 years there, and it was a wonderful 5 years. The last year and a half or so, I had a boss who I just didn't see eye to eye with, and no matter how good you are at your job, um, you know what, you just sometimes run into people that you
Yeah.
just don't get along with. So he asked me to do a few things I didn't agree with, and I decided to strike it out on my own. I'll never forget going to my biggest customer I had sold at Quest that I held a relationship on, held on to even after starting, going into leadership. And I just went to him. I just said, you know what? I'm thinking about starting a company, and I don't have a lot of bills at home. But if you said that you go with me, I think I'll start this company. And if you say no, I don't know. I don't know if I will. Odds are a little bit less. I'll never forget it. The guy said, Matthew, we're with Quest because we're with you. And it was a lightning bolt. It was
Yeah.
a lightning bolt moment. And at this very moment, I said, oh my gosh, I'm going to start a company. And there was no doubt. There was absolutely no doubt. And at that very moment in time, I thought to myself, I'm never going to work for anyone else ever again. And I'm going to make this work. Because for 8.5 years, I'd worked for folks with the soulless pursuit of more. I'd been a little bit burned towards the end of my Quest tenure with
Yeah.
the leader I'd been working with. And I just said, you know what? Even if it's only myself working out of, in my living room, this is what I want to do. And it just so happened that that was November of 2008. Now, if you want to go look at the history books again, that is a kind of a poopy time to go
Yeah.
start a company.
Yeah.
So everyone's like, are you sure about the wisdom of this? Like, you could just go get another job, kind of ride out this massive storm that no one's seen since the Great Depression.
Yeah.
But that was what I was going to do. And I had this one company. And I thought I could get a few more of my ex-clients, but I thought to myself, I can at least pay my bills with this one company's commissions. So I started this company in 2008. I'll never forget the first 14 months of working. I think I made $22,000. But I had saved up some money, and I'm like, nope,
Yeah.
this is it. There's no turning back. You are burning the ships. That is it. And that was the start of my journey. And when I started this thing, I thought there's going to be one or two things that's going to happen. It's going to be one, I'm going to work this thing by myself forever and ever. Or maybe the second one is maybe I'll hire a few people. We'll see how it goes.
Yeah.
But the first few years, it's just like, hey, you're just trying to get any pennies in the door. Like you're trying to get anything going.
Yeah.
You just got to get some momentum going. Jim Collins talks about this thing called the flywheel. And imagine this
Yeah.
thing that's 2,000 pounds, and all you're trying to do is just push it an inch because the second inch is a little bit easier than the first one. So all I'm focusing on, forget about hiring people and forget about all this stuff. Like I just got to get some momentum going. So I busted my ass for a good, I think it was 3.5 years before I ended up bringing on somebody else. And that, like when I started actually hiring people, I was thinking to myself, what kind of company would I want to have? What kind of leader do I want to be? What is important to me? And that is where all of this stuff from my background came from. And it was just this wellspring of ideas. And well, I could do this and I could avoid that. And if we had this person, this might not be the right thing. And I feel like C3 started from that, but has evolved since with all the folks that have come
Yeah.
in and honestly, and aren't here anymore as well. So that's the long version of my origin
No,
story.
I love it. You call out a couple things that I want to bring back in there that I want to make sure people don't miss, that I've heard in other great success stories. And I went through some of this too. You know, you surround yourself with people, you think these are the people that are supposed to show you the way and teach you what to do, and you quickly realize and say, wait a minute, I think these guys are showing me examples of what not to do. So always recognize, we need to recognize those in our life. Is this really somebody that's going to guide me, or is this somebody that's going to pull me down? Right. I think that was a great call out in that. The second thing that you said too is that this was I was just listening to a thing on what Thomas Edison last night, and kind of how the maniacal creation process, and kind of how he did what he did, and the thought was similar track here was what you said is, you know, look at a way that something is being done and make a slight improvement on it, and there's value in that, right? And you saw that value and you created that value, and that's how many other, I think, things have been created. Is, gosh, how do people not realize that there's a ton of value here, but we're just doing these one or two dumb things? Like, let's just improve this, right? So, you know, kudos to you for kind of seeing that same track, and here we are, right?
And you can never turn that off, though. Like that's the whole key.
Yeah.
It can't be the thing that you do for the first year or two. It's got to be the forever thing. Because like if you ever turn it off, you'll end up getting passed. You'll end up getting lapped by everybody else. And I feel like that's hard to do. And it's a reason why I think a lot of folks, I don't want to bag on people because like a lot of money has been offered. There's PE money in this space, and that's wonderful. But there are folks that it's so consuming. It consumes energy and emotion and your time to continually have that. And if you don't have that, it almost makes sense to sell the organization to somebody that will have that. But it is, you have to continue to have that, or it doesn't work out ultimately.
For sure. For sure. All right, let's flip it now. Let's talk a little bit about C3. You know, you guys are a fantastic partner. You've grown a great business out there. Talk to us about just, you know, who C3 is, how do you stand out, all that good stuff.
So there are about 40 of us. We're focused mostly on the Midwest. You know, we're founded in '08, like I said, so going on about 16 years old today. And we really focus on, you know, we don't have an MSP practice. We don't sell printers on the side. This is the thing that we do. So we consult with our clients to make uh, good decisions at the end of the day on buying about 5 or so different technologies. It's the stuff that, you know, big networks, contact center, cybersecurity, UC, and it gets data center colocation. And there's, you know, products 5 through 12, but that's probably about 80-90% of our revenue right there. We've stayed pretty true to that stuff. You know, there have been a lot of things that try to grab our attention. You know, like we're doing a lot of evaluation on AI. It looks like it's partly it's part of our contact center practice, but it's also pulling us in this direction as well. So we're looking at that, but we're trying to stay core to the things that we can be really good at. So I'm going back to that, to Jim Collins. He says, what what drives your economic engine? What are you passionate about? And what can you be better at than everyone else? So I use those 3 principles when we talk about who we want to be when we grow up, because we're only 16 years old. And I think we've got another 30, 40 years left in us.
Yeah, I love it. Well, the next thing I want to get into then is kind of what's driving this, right? Taking what you've learned, leadership philosophies that you've learned, right? You mentioned some of the Jim Collins, some of the flywheel components. I mean, is there are those the core? Are there other leadership principles that kind of guide this company's growth, culture, mentors, things like that?
I'll start there. There's a couple things. I'll actually start with something we've been doing just over the past year, and I'm going to give a lot of credit to my director of operations, Taylor. She said, you know what, we should probably do EOS. So entrepreneurial operating system. We implemented that about a year ago. So, and what that does is that takes all the things that live on the back of the napkin and all the values and all the things that you should probably put on paper and formalize it, makes you do that. So when we talk about values, like, we have those things ready to go. I'll talk about some of those. Um, One of them is curiosity. Like, we want people who are just genuinely curious about life. We talked a little bit before about jobs. You talk about Benjamin Franklin. You talk about these people that have changed history, people that are extraordinary at what they do. And you don't even need to change history, but like, if you have that curiosity, I think you can be an amazing marketer, project manager, leader, seller, engineer, all that stuff, if you're truly curious about what you do. So, um, so one of them for me, one of them that I love is extreme ownership. There's this book by Jocko Willink, and
Yes.
it's set, and if you have to read the book. I'm going to probably, that the lesson is, if anything goes wrong in your life, look inwards first. So their whole world is uh, wants to wants to make their problems everyone else's problems. Hey, these things didn't happen in my life because this person did this, society did that to me. And Jocko Willing says, first, second, and third, you look from within. You take ownership. So even if you are in a mission that fails and you're only 20 or 30% culpable, you own that 20 or 30% first before going out and talking about anybody else. So that is one of our values here. So, and I love that, because that means we're not walking around just pointing
Yep.
fingers at other people. This customer did this to me. This employee did this to me. This person did this to me. You take ownership for that stuff, and I truly do love that. So I could go through all of them. I won't. You might have to do a lot of editing. The maybe the one or two other things I might say would be, just everything here is long-term based.
Yeah.
Like going back to those days of working at Quest and at Sprint and at WorldCom, there's always this hustle of, like, every month, every end of quarter, every end of year, there's just there's this maniacal, just, oh my gosh, like, just run this, just run as fast as you can. Don't worry about January 1st. Only
Yeah.
worry about today. And I always think to myself, like, results and money are lagging indicators of doing the right things. So I don't really think about anything in short term. Like, I won't lie to you. I don't know so what? The end of the quarter is next month. The September 30th, or where, September 31st, whenever the last day of September is, just going to be another day.
Yeah.
It's just going to be another day. That's it. And if you just have this constant rush, and just for short-term things, for short-term results, I think you ultimately burn people out. I do. And one of the things that I think we've done a really good job at here is holding on to really good talent. You can make a business out of just acquiring great talent and holding on to it.
Yeah.
If you can do that further, longer than your competitors, I don't care. It doesn't matter if you want to sell what we sell, or you want to sell this, or you want to sell this, or you want to sell these. It doesn't matter. You can make a business out of that. So if you burn those people out with so much short-term stuff all the time, and you end up putting those gears, that sand in those gears, you end up losing those people. I don't know. I think,
Yeah.
I don't know if you'll ever become a great company. I think you can, maybe, who knows, maybe you can become a good company because your product's so good. but I don't think you can become a great company. So like just everything is long term.
Yeah.
So I go on for a few more minutes, but I'd say those are some of the biggest
No,
ones.
huge. I don't think. Yeah, I don't think the long term vision is looked at enough, regardless of what people's even short term goals might be. Just play the long game. Have patience. Yeah, I can't agree with that more. And then I love the extreme ownership thing as well. I think there is too much of that kind of victim mentality, right? If we own
Mm.
it and get better, just all we're going to do is get better at the end of the day. So I couldn't agree with that more. It's good stuff.
And that's a societal problem to
Yeah.
me. Like I mean, I feel like society is putting this upon
Yeah.
people. So sometimes you find yourself even unwiring people from what society's putting in them.
Yeah. All right, let's talk about something difficult here. Let's talk about company challenge. So give me a major strategic challenge companies face, and how did you navigate it?
Oh man. Um, I'll say this one. Being a small company, you can do everything on the back of a napkin. So, and there becomes a point when you can't do the stuff on the back of the napkin anymore because the napkin just got too big. And this napkin doesn't work well with this napkin. And that is when you have a real company. When you have too many napkins and you actually have to put all this together, and I call it the mousetrap because let's just say for us, there's 50 pieces in this mousetrap. When this piece moves, I've got to go do this and this and this. And when this piece changes, it changes all these other things. When you're a small company, you can change something. You can almost do it. You can do it in a vacuum, and it really won't mess with too many things. But there's a point in time in our history when we're like, okay, there's way too many things in the back of napkins, and no one knows where we're going. And they know what our values are, but simply because we do them, but they've never really been talked about. And
Yeah.
hey, here they are on paper. And this is what you should base your decisions on if there's ever a doubt as to what you should do. So this is a story of us essentially saying, okay, we've grown to this point. How are we going to run this company moving forward? And it's really hard. And it's at this point where someone says, you know what? I just might sell out and let someone else go take care of this stuff because it's really hard because everyone's just used to like decisions being made on the fly.
Yeah.
So at that point in time, this is now going on about 16 or so months ago, we just said, okay, we need to look at a better way to run our company. Everything from how you run meetings to how you pronounce goals and like what are the things that are important? Where are we going? Putting all those things on paper. And that was when we put in EOS and we told everybody, hey, look, we told them this whole story because like one of my values, one of my personal values is really transparency as well. It is we can't do this forever, everyone.
Yeah.
Like we have to come up with a different way. So the story for how we tackled this and how we tackled that next level of our company was just by being vulnerable and telling everybody like I've only taken this as far as I can. The back of all these napkins are full. This is the first time I've ever done this before. I'm not some serial entrepreneur. This isn't my fifth company. So I think if you start with that humility and that vulnerability, people will follow you. Like if they feel like that. And I think that's what we try to do here. So we started with that humility, we started that with that vulnerability, and we knew that we had to formalize that stuff that was on the back of napkins. So leadership did this for about we picked an implementer. We started for about 4 or 5 months on our own, and then we rolled this out. And we just said, guys and girls, we are going to break vases and we're gonna screw up all kinds of stuff. But I need you to hold on for all this because I think the place that we're gonna ultimately get to is going to be better than where we are. So, and that was really hard because it was this constant, it was a daily thing of, well, hang on here, we're doing this thing, new thing over here. That's not how we did things over here. And it was always this, I know. And you know what? I'm not even going to guarantee you that this new way is going to work,
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
we're going to try this. And I need you to put forth full effort on this because if it fails, I need to know if it was your effort or the idea
Yeah.
that failed. So, and if you don't put forth effort, I have two variables here. I need to get to one. So I have to have full effort. I have to have full commitment on
Yeah,
this.
that's a man, that's a really important thing. Because I think nobody tells you when it's about to get really hard to do the way that you've been doing it before. These things just kind of creep in and happen, and then you just have this moment where you go, that doesn't work the way that it did before, right? To your point, the napkins get full, and some people that's 10 employees, some people that's 100 employees, 20 employees. It's just different in every situation. But the fact that I think you recognize it, it goes into this idea of challenge, it goes into this idea of innovation. But what we've heard too often is, okay, I made a pivot, I tried it, and it didn't work. Well, how long did you try it? Well, I tried it for a week, or two people tried it. Did those two people really give their all? Did you measure it? Do you have data to prove it? Did we test it, with 100 people? Do you have a true data set? I love that. I think that's a huge call out because then you're right. I mean, this is still, as long as some of us feel like we might have been in this space, it's still a really young industry, and it's certainly where distribution and technology procurement is going, right? So I love that we're all right at the epicenter where this thing is heading towards. But again, it's the first time in some of these instances, and so we've got to measure those things. To your point, to go, while we're trying to do these things, the industry is changing, and we're trying to adapt around it, right? So, you've got to measure those and test those, but you've got changing paradigm shifts on the outside, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it is very interesting to be in an industry that itself is constantly changing while you're changing then as well. Like these are two things you have to balance at the same time. And it's the reason why most folks get bucked off that horse.
Yeah. Yeah. All right, so let's talk about, as an entrepreneur, founder, president, what for other partners listening to this, they're wanting to kind of build up a business, or maybe struggling to build, or getting ready to build. What's the advice? What's your advice that you'd give them in this?
For starting a company and being an entrepreneur. Um, the first one is like if I would unless you can build a company by yourself and do this all by yourself, you need to care about people. And what I mean by that is like you want to go build a company and you hire 5 folks, you hire 10 people, you hire 20 people. Um, if you don't really care, like truly care, like wake up every day and care about those people, don't be an entrepreneur. Really don't. Go be a high level IC somewhere where you are the focus of you. But if you build a successful organization, I think that most people within that organization will say that the leadership cares about you. And and if that doesn't come naturally to you, then don't do it. So I feel like I've worked for people where they are a manager or a leader, but they're trying to figure out they're trying to maximize their own comp plan. They're worried about themselves. And like I always say that like, money and results are a lagging indicator of having the right people and trust in leaders and those people feeling like they're going to go to the depths of hell with you. So I would just say you need to care about people, and that's got to be something where it's just like it's not surface. It's got to be deep. So that'd be probably the first thing I would tell you. The second thing I would tell you is even if you haven't started the company yet, I would do this. And I started doing this shortly after I started C3. Is you go to all these people that, you know, you've had all these career stops before you actually get to be an entrepreneur. And you know who the really, really good people are. And you go to those people even before you start a company and you say, there's going to be a time where I might start a company and I don't know at what point I'm going to give you a call, but I would like you to be a part of that. And if even if you don't end up starting a company one day, boy, isn't that a nice compliment you're going to get from somebody? Somebody walks around and says, "Yeah, they would want me to be the second mate on that ship." That sounds pretty cool. Do that. Go to the people that you know you would want on your boat if you were even to start a company and plant those seeds. To this day, I've got hundreds of seeds out there. Most of them won't grow. Most of them won't, but you're going to get a few. And those people are going to remember that conversation. So you start having those conversations even before you start the company. And yeah, a few of those will grow. So
Love it.
the geez, beyond that, I mean, those are the first two that come to mind. When you first start, I love this. I got some advice. He's like, hey, there was a guy that's been in our space, and he said, some people are going to tell you to go get a website, and some people are going to tell you you've got to go have your business plan, and some people are going to go tell you this. And he just says, are you ready for this? This is the first thing you should do when you're starting your company. Go sell. Go sell
Yes.
right now. Don't worry about everything else. Go sell. And what's funny to me is like the first like 3 or 4 months at C3, I had a Hotmail account.
Yeah.
Like I didn't even have my domain yet. I was inspired by this guy. I was like, yeah, I got to go do that. That makes sense to me. I got to get this flywheel going. So like, no matter what industry you're in, it doesn't matter if it's our industry, you're going to be a florist or whatever. Like, go sell. Day one, you got to go get revenue in the door. So don't worry about much else. Go sell.
Yeah. Yeah. I love that. Again, another book reference here. I learned that, and kind of seeing partners and build and what people want to focus on, what they should focus on, and things like that. Nothing happens until you sell something. And
Hmm.
so I couldn't agree more in that. Don't get sidetracked. Grant Cardone's got a good book out there. It was one of the first ones I read back in the trying to understand some of these things. He's got the 10x mentality. So people, Cliff Notes is people dramatically underestimate the amount of time, energy, and effort and money that it takes to be successful. If you're going to do this thing and you think it's going to take, 50 cold calls, it's probably going to take 500 or whatever. You think it's going to take $50, it's probably going to take 500. And so I think people grossly misunderestimate that. So I just focus, just go sell. I love that. Sounds like the simplest advice, but it's probably one of the most valuable things that we can help. Don't worry about all this other crap. Just go sell stuff. I love it.
And it's funny because like I've coached some other entrepreneurs, like even outside of our space. And I tell most folks that, if you're the world's best engineer or you're the world's best, architect or whatever, and you start your own company, congratulations. Your number one job now is you're a salesperson. So you have to sell this to your customers, and you have to sell this idea to other people so that they'll ultimately work for you as well. You are a salesperson. So, and that's to me one of the reasons why very successful people, very smart people fail at being an entrepreneur because they fail to realize that the first thing you've got to be good at as an entrepreneur is sales.
Yeah, love it. All right, so let's talk about decision making. Uh, you got. It seems like sometimes every day there's high stakes decisions, right? There's fires or there's whatever it might be. But what's your approach to these high stakes decision makings when it's an area that maybe you haven't tackled before?
All right, there's a couple things that come to mind. Um, so uh, openness is one of them. Openness, like even to a fault. It's almost like, like free speech. Like if you're not sure free speech should be free, should this be restricted? Whenever something's in question, it should be free speech. The same thing when it comes to decision making here. It's like if I'm not sure about openness, I should be open. So even to a fault. So I probably say too much of the things that are going on in my head. But I'll just say this, it makes decision making and even living life easier if you're just like, this is how I operate. This is me as an open book. So I operate on this premise of openness, and that makes you if you're going to be that open, you're even thinking about the things that are going on in your mind. You have to have that vulnerability. Like I don't go around saying I'm right 100% of the time. It is this is what I think, this is what I've done, these are the results. I might have screwed this up over here, over there. If you can go in and admit fault on things you've done, things you've thought, other people think, oh, well, he doesn't think he walks on water. I can actually have a real conversation. So I think of openness. I hinted at this one, the second one being humility. So it it's not something it's not something you can fake. So you have to truly go into these situations knowing that maybe you have more experience, maybe you have more knowledge, but maybe this other person has this other point of view. Maybe they have something to bring that I simply don't know. And you know what? There's going to be faults in my own thinking as well. So I go into this just with this level of humility, and I try to take all the defensiveness I would ever have because someone is going to challenge my ideas. And they're going to say, this is how I did something in the past. And here are some of the things that have worked for me. And if you can't turn that defensiveness off and you and practice humility, then I think you'll only be as good of a leader as the ideas that are in your own head. It stunts your growth. So that humility and that openness and just not being defensive. So someone says something that gets under your skin, that rankles your feathers a little bit, let that go. Like it's not going to help you in getting where you need to go to.
Yeah, I love that. Don't be defensive. And I think in some instances, it's just sleep on it. Just sleep on it. I think some of the things that I've learned from great mentors myself are just sleep on it, pause, remember that you may have to work with this person for the next 20 years. They may be your boss tomorrow. You may be their boss. They may need to hire you. You may need to, whatever the case is. Obviously, it goes to this kind of don't burn bridges mentality. But I think if you embody all of these things, and to your point, I love the humility angle because we don't have all the answers, and we try to surround ourselves with great people, so we should trust those people, right? If we're not, then we're surrounding ourselves with the wrong people. So I love the humility and don't be defensive. I love that.
You said the sleep on it rule, and you know what? This is interesting because we call it the 24-hour rule, because like sometimes you just get all worked up and like um my director of operations, I love the phrase. She says, sometimes I just want to go keyboard warrior on somebody, you know, and and we've just said, you know what? If you get really worked up and something can wait for a day, let it wait for a day. And if you feel the same way the next day, then go do that thing.
Yeah.
But sometimes you get so worked up, like, oh, I do declare my delicate sensibilities have been offended. And then you just go all keyboard warrior. And then you're like,
Yeah.
oh, did I really mean that? Did I just get all worked up?
Yeah.
So it's a great point. That's a very good point.
All right, so let's shift. Let's shift here. We got about 15 minutes. Let's shift this in. We got a lot. We could. This is a good topic here. We're going to get into personal growth. So you yourself, we were talking about this a little before we got started. How have you continued to grow, develop as a leader? Resources, experiences. Let's go through that.
Oh man. Personal growth. It was about one of my sales guys had hired a sales coach, and he was a sales and business coach. It worked very well for him. So I decided to adopt him for myself and actually the rest of the organization. So I have a guy who sits on, I'll give props to John Clemson, is the guy's name. And he sits outside the organization, and he's not responsible for a number. It's like he has no, he doesn't have a stake in the company, but he has gotten to understand the organization, the personalities, and myself, and he will help guide some of the more difficult decisions that we have to make. So having a mentor, having a coach, go do that thing. Like I feel like this is the thing that everyone talks about and very few people actually go do. So So that's one thing that I've done that's quite high on my list. I probably talk to mine. We try and talk about once a week if we can. Sometimes turns into every other week, but it's always that's always been very good. For myself as well, I have it all blurred out now, but I'm big on books. So I love history books. We talked about history before, Josh. Biographies, business books. There's a huge number of outstanding books out there. And I'm big on Audible. So one of my keys to life is just go get a book and put at 1.4 speed. So it all works out. They sound a little Mickey Mousey, but it all works out. But like what I find extraordinary is, you read a book on Steve Jobs, you read a book on Benjamin Franklin, Elon Musk, all these different people, Michael Jordan, Phil Knight, and you're like, you find some of these common threads amongst people in different geographies, different parts of the world, and they're doing something similar. And that's when I feel like you get a few more puzzle pieces in this universe when you can find these things that these guys say in completely different fields, and you're like, oh my gosh, that's one of these secrets to life. And I'll give you a small dumb one. Now these come from a podcast, but like I have a treadmill. So right here, I'm on this thing for 3 hours a day. So why? Because I'm listening to these podcasts, and one of them was entrepreneurs and just like big business people that are interviewed. And one of the questions is always, where do you come up with your best ideas? And they asked Bill Gates this, Mark Zuckerberg, and a few other people, and they all said, well, it's when I'm walking around and I'm going to do this and going to do that. And I'm like, I sit for like 9 hours a day. So I take calls when I'm walking on this. I take calls outside walking this dog named Bob all around my neighborhood. And I constantly have this blood going. And so anyway, it's just like one of those things I've learned along the way. But I'm big on reading and listening to people that have done this before and have been there and have done that. I'd say the third one is building a peer group. So I've several peers that I feel like I can share myself and the struggles that I have, and not a mentor necessarily, but a group of peers. And that's really helped me because these are folks that have some of the very similar struggles. So I would say those are the things that come to mind for my personal growth development.
I love it. I love it. And I want to double down on a couple of these things. First of all, I love that your dog's name is Bob. I think that's awesome.
It's a crazy little dog. He's 9 pounds. I mean, if there was like an Olympics for dogs, he would dominate. He would be Usain Bolt in dog Olympics. So
it.
anyway,
no. But there's a couple things I want to call back on because I've been reading a lot of this stuff lately, and one of the things that Buffett and Munger had was just leaving a ton of empty space in their calendar for thinking. And I know that sounds, how can that, if I don't have 25 meetings a day, I'm not effective. No, your role changes over time as the entrepreneur, as the owner, at these different levels. And if you can't have time to just stop and pause and think about what's next, think about this complicated decision. And I love the walking around idea. And so that's, couldn't agree more with that. The second thing is as you start to, I don't care if you listen to this podcast or you read this book or you find this biography, you find this common thread. Everything kind of pulls together. It started off for me seeing how, okay, this person studied Steve Jobs. All right, well, what did Steve Jobs, how did he learn? Who did he surround himself with? He cold called, was it Bill Packard at the beginning to look for some resistors to just, he was not afraid, right? Well, who did he study as he moved on? He studied Edwin Land, right? So what did Edwin Land, the inventor of Polaroid, did? Edwin Land went and said, you know what? I'm going to go to the Stanford Library. I'm really passionate about this, and I'm going to read every single book they have on light. Who else is going to do that, right? How are you not, this is the second person that I was reading about. The other one yesterday was Thomas Edison. where he didn't go to the law. He didn't grow up in a spot where he had a great learning environment. It was progressively he had the opportunities to, and he didn't go and read a book. His quote was, "I went and I read the library." Right?
Mm.
How can you not be great when you can just listen and learn from all of these other things, all of these other successful people, and you sprinkle in some people, the leaders of the world, maybe some controversial people of the world. Still, it goes back to, I think, the earlier point that you brought up of we've got to listen to all of these things. We've got to find out who we're surrounding ourselves with that can teach us how to grow and be better, and then who is probably somebody to not model ourselves after, but what can I learn from that mistake that they made so that I don't make that, or I can improve on this product and make it better. So I love, love the walking thing. I think that's awesome. There's so much to be gleaned here.
And some of the things that like come to mind is like, you said Edison just walked in and he read the library. Like to me, that means this is someone who has this insatiable curiosity about everything. Like I will tell you, like the architects of the world are the people that are these curious beings. They walk around, they want to understand, they never turn that thing off in their
Yeah.
mind of how things work and how things could be a little bit better. And by the way, there's one other point I wanted to hit because we mentioned jobs once or twice, and I love this because it kind of goes into some of the themes we've talked about earlier. They asked Jobs what his most important accomplishment was, and you're thinking yourself the iPhone. You're thinking yourself this or that, and he says the team of people that created the Mac, not the Mac, the team of people that built that. And I was just like, oh, that's good. That's
Yeah.
so good.
Yeah.
That's so good. That was just like one of those like tingly moments where it's like that guy has figured out what this mosaic of universe is actually made of. Like, and he's like, he's figured this out.
Yeah. I love it. I love it. All right. So final couple thoughts here. Walk us through maybe something that started as a perceived failure and then led to a success, or really just some key learning for you.
Oh, um, I always talk to folks that um, in hiring here, I've kissed a lot of frogs. So everyone sees all the princes here, princes and princesses, but I've kissed a lot of frogs to get here. And I think when I think of my greatest failures, it's having to do with people and hiring the wrong people. If there's a silver lining to that, though, the organization starts to understand who we are when we don't let those kinds of people hang out for long. So if you do that, all the Navy SEALs you have around are like, I don't really feel like I'm in a group of people that are as badass as I am.
Yeah.
So, um, so I think of those failures in that way. And now who we go after, our hiring process, how long they stay here, all of those things are this outgrowth of failures from having brought on the wrong people. And don't get me wrong, like we'll hire for 30 years and 30, 40 years, and I am assuming we'll make more and more more and more mistakes. But like I think we're getting better at it. And if you can do this thing where you hold on to good talent, but let the folks go that this isn't the best fit for, that is a that's a that's monumental. It's absolutely monumental. So I would say those biggest failures though are the bringing on the wrong people, and sometimes you hold on those wrong people for too long, and yeah, and yeah, hiring and bringing on the right people is probably that big lesson that I've learned from that.
I love it. Yes, couldn't agree with that more too. Spend a lot of time on hiring. It's a tedious process, and if you wanted to, you could breeze through it real quick, but kills the culture. And just echoing all of that. Double down on that. Spend a lot of time on hiring. We could run a whole session on hiring for sure. There's a lot to get right there. It's important.
I think of like almost I've talked to people that have these really successful organizations, and I think we've done pretty well. So I'm going to plus in some group here, and I just say, imagine that you still have the 10 or 15 people that you've let go as a part of your organization if they were still here, and they just go, ooh. gosh, like it just puts a layer
Yeah,
of ick over this amazing thing that you've built. So you have to let those people go. But I think if you do this with heart and you let people go with heart, and and you don't just, if you do it with heart, everything will
yeah,
be just fine. But
sure,
you can't let them hang out for too long.
for sure. All right, final thoughts. So let's look forward, right? Let's look forward and look back, the legacy, the impact, in this 5, 10, 15, 40 years from now, right? In this role, what impact do you hope to have had on the industry?
Um, I think about it more in terms of like impact on people. But as far as impact on the industry, this, I don't know. I feel like I'm not answering your question, but I feel like that's for the industry to decide. So I don't necessarily walk in with that being what I think about. If I think about the impact on specific people, I want, everyone's had those jobs, those careers, those missteps. And I want really talented people to feel like I can come here for 20 or 30 years and help grow something and be a part of something special. And it could be fulfilling and it could be fun. I'm going to enjoy life, and I'm going to be a better person, a better father, a better wife to other people. I think about my impact like one person at a time, and providing for them this living and giving them these chances that maybe someone else in the world won't give them. So and I think about that, and I'm hoping that those people want to stick around here, and then maybe actually even mentor other people that come into this organization as well. So it's almost like I don't even go into this thinking like, how can I change the world? I'm just thinking, how can I change like the closest 50 people to me? And then if we all go into this world thinking, I'm just going to focus on the people that are closest to me, I don't have to worry about the world because the world's going to take care of itself.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I've never really thought about it until you asked me that question about like, what do I think my impact on the industry is going to be? I'm not sure, but I don't concern myself with it as much as I concern myself with the people that are here. Because like there's no alternate universe where I don't do the best that I can for the people here, and maybe I don't make as big of an impact on the industry. And the converse would be, I don't take good care of my people, but I make this huge impact on the industry. That to me wouldn't be success. I
Yeah.
would feel terrible about that. That wouldn't feel good to me. Um, so I feel like I'm avoiding your question, but
No,
it's
no,
the answer
you
that
answered
comes
it.
naturally.
You actually, I mean, look, there's no wrong answers here, but you answered in I think a unique way, because it shows obviously it shows where your heart is, right? Your heart is with your people, as it should be, to drive and help and make them better. And I think that indirectly, by helping and building and growing and creating this life, this thing that people see value in, they feel good, they're growing, they're helping, and as they go and mentor others and they do the things that they do, I think it does have impact on the broader everything. And we hope those things certainly transcend down into the broader industry, the broader culture. I think it's our job to just help people find the best versions of themselves. And I think you're doing a bang up job of it. And I think it shows kind of where your heart and where your focus is. So no, that was not the wrong answer. That was a great answer.
I love that phrase. If you can help someone become the best version of themselves, I love that. So if that's something that you're doing in your daily life, bravo to you, because there's only so many people in this world that think like that.
Love it. Good stuff, man. All right, look, we could have gone on. I know we could have gone on a lot more stuff. We're both passionate about a lot of these things, but Matthew Toth, C3 founder, president, I really appreciate you coming on, man, dropping some of these nuggets for us.
I enjoyed the conversation, Josh. Thank you.
Awesome. All right, everybody. That wraps us up for this week. I'm your host, Josh Lupresto, SVP of Sales Engineering at Telarus. Matthew Toth, founder and president at C3. Until next time, everybody.
Next Level BizTech has been a production of Telarus Studio 19. Please visit Telarus.com for more information.